Big Book Study Workshop. We'll go through the first portion of the basic text as outlined by the first 100 men and women. And how we open up this meeting is with the set-aside prayer. Dear God, please set aside everything I think I know about myself, this book, my illness, these steps, and especially about you, dear God, so that I might have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Please help me to see the truth. Thank you.
All right. I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name's Tony. I'd like to welcome everybody. Oh, I've got to unmute myself. Welcome to... Here we go again. I'm an alcoholic. My name's Tony. Sobriety days, April 8, 1989. Recovered alcoholic. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Thursday night Big Book Study Workshop with the program of recovery laid out by the first 100 men and women. What we do is we go through what it says in the book, not what we think it says in the book. And what we learn is the language of Alcoholics Anonymous. There's a lot of different languages being spoken in AA, and what we try to do is get back to the basics, right, of those that put this together. And the better understanding we have, the more likely we'll follow this and incorporate in our lives, and the more likely we'll find a solution that will enable us to live a life beyond anything we could ever imagine. And that's kind of what they're offering here. They're offering more than sobriety. They're offering a new way of life, right? If it was just about being sober, we would have sold ourselves short. How many people just tried being sober? That's a painful event, isn't it? And you stuck with you with no solution. No wonder we return to drinking again. How many people's relapsed here? So we realize there's more to this thing. Once you get rid of what we think is the solution, which is alcohol, how many people used alcohol as a solution to the dilemma called self, right? So we need to find a new solution for the dilemma called self. Because if we don't find a new solution that brings about a sense of ease and comfort and well-being, guess what we'll return to? The insanity of alcohol will return. What's the step one promise? That we will continue to drink. What's the step two promise is, if I'm willing to take a course of action, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. So consistently, I've never met anybody in the last over 31 years now who's ever done this out of the book and maintained it who's ever relapsed. Not one person's ever been able to say to me, you know what, I've done this thing, I've incorporated it in my life, I've done everything it's asked me, I formed a relationship with a power greater than myself, I've been doing step 11 every day and working with newcomers and carrying this message and still trying to be of service, and I found myself getting loaded again. I've never heard that story. Anybody hear that story? No, right? The story we hear is, I've tried to go through this thing. I've really worked on myself, and I really surrendered, and I really let go, and I really turned over, and I really tried to focus on me and my triggers, on me. And the more I focused on me, the thirstier I got, and I didn't know that. Anybody hear that story? So what we've created here, where we're at, is a different story. Right? And that story gets established in step two, actually, right? Is the idea that there's a different story available to us if we're willing to go to do certain things, right? They talked about the people who were sold on the ideas in this book, or did the simple kit of tools laid at their feet, and they embarked on a course of action. Now, it wasn't their course of action, but it was the course of action of those that put this together, right? In the beginning, they talked about over 100 men and women that put this together. By the time you get to, there is a solution in the fourth edition here, they've talked about since thousands, right? So this is our solution. This is what Alcoholics Anonymous endorses as the solution of those who are afflicted with alcoholism. And it seems to work with other problems, but we deal with singleness of purpose here. And if you found a solution that enables you to recover from alcoholism, when you understand what alcoholism is and the hopelessness of it, and you've experienced it on the level that they talk about, and that kind of baffling feature of keeping drinking regardless of all your effort not to and all your problems not, and you continue to drink in spite of yourself, and you're doing acts against yourself by drinking again. Anybody like that here? Then they offer you this solution, and they say the basis of it is, if I'm willing to believe that there is a power greater than myself, not have a relationship with God in step two, but willing to believe that there is a power greater than myself, and I can define that as I go along here, right? And in step three, if you're willing to do this course of action as they did this course of action, to what? to start this relationship with a power greater than ourselves. So we see that's the purpose of the steps, is to enable us to find this power. True or false? We've been through this, right? True. So the byproduct or the confirmation, what's the confirmation of this relationship with this power? And who's hosting with me tonight? Is a psychic change or spiritual experience. Is it not? Is that not the whole purpose of this thing?
Yep.
Yep. Because if we don't get this psychic change or spiritual experience, what's our fate? We see we have two alternatives. One is to go on to the bitter end, or two is to formulate this relationship with power that's deep down within. And they'll show us the roadmap on how to do that, where it becomes personal to us and it creates a shift within our psyche sufficient enough to recover. When you think about that, that's pretty profound. They call it a phenomena, that these people who seem doomed, were beyond human aid, took a spiritual course of action, and were able to recreate their lives by the formulating or the kind of this thing that happens in their mind called a psychic change or spiritual experience that we've read in the back of the book. Is that not a phenomena? Is that not an unexplainable event? So if it could do that in regards to alcoholism, realign your thinking where you're no longer afflicted with alcoholism. You're no longer suffering from alcoholism. You still have the allergy, but you're no longer under its spell. Right? It doesn't have you anymore. You've recovered from it. What you work toward is a daily reprieve from what? That death sentence that lies ahead in step one. We're not cured of alcoholism. What we have is a daily reprieve. That means we're no longer afflicted with it. We're no longer in the grips of it. That's pretty well. So now, if you were able to take that same kind of spiritual principles or thinking and apply it to any other problem in your life, what problem or situation wouldn't be able to overcome of something within inside of yourself that was conflicting you?
Nothing.
That's why there's so many 12-step fellowships. Because it works for all that stuff. Because all that stuff we're afflicted with are just symptoms of an underlying problem. Right? Being AA was still with alcohol, but NA, SA, all that stuff are all symptoms of an underlying problem, right? An illness, right? So we just finished. This is where a lot of people's really gonna get kind of stuck on the ideas that they have instead of what the book has. We just finished 6 and 7. So ideally, if you were to get this book in the mail, or if your sponsor was to give it to you and you were sitting at home reading it, and you just finished 6 and 7, you took the book down from the shelf, you went over 6 and 7, you looked at the proposals being presented here, right? Is the work solid so far? Have we admitted anything, right? And then we confirm step 6 is, am I still hanging on to anything from my past that I'm bringing forward, right? Step 7 is a confirmation of a recommitment of step 3. It's an idea that God's going to take care of all these things, good and bad, right? He's going to take care of the shortcomings. The shortcomings is today's challenges. Step 6 is yesterday challenges that I bring in today. Big difference. Anybody have fights of past events in their life? How many people have been in a relationship here and dealt with yesterday stuff today? It's a different occurrence. That's step 6 stuff. And then there's today's stuff, which is the shortcoming stuff. That's step 7, falling short of the idea, falling short of the mark, not handling ourselves very well today. That's the shortcoming. The defect is something that we carry from the past that determines our behavior today. Our response today, absolutely, it may sound kind of weird, but that's the only way. Sometimes me and the wife will have a moment today because it's today's stuff. There's nothing from yesterday coming forward. Right, today, but sometimes we'll have yesterday stuff, and there's already emotion and kind of energy tied to it. Does that kind of make sense? So here they're saying, you know what, we're going to have you take it all, good and bad, because you know what, I need to focus on the characteristics or the instructions that I learned in step 4 of being present in the now, of working on my relationship when. Now, may you find them when.
Now.
Now, not later, now. Right? We outgrow fear when?
Now.
We master resentments when?
Now.
Right? So that's this whole design is so I can be present. What's God's will for me is to play the role
He assigns.
when?
Now.
Now. So how many people's had a problem just living in the moment? No, you're not having a problem living in the moment. You're having a problem bringing in yesterday into the day and forecasting into the future. The only problem you have right now, if you really need to use the washroom and you can't find one, that's a now problem, right? But mostly it has. Come on, you gotta explain it.
Diarrhea.
Huh?
Always diarrhea. Always
Okay.
go doctor.
So we're gonna look at some really interesting stuff. If you got a pen and a highlighter, read this like nobody's ever explained to you what it is, or you've never read it before, or you've never been to treatment, or you've never been to a meeting. Pretend you've just got this and you're reading it for the first time with nobody else's influence. Can we do that? That's what the setup. How many people is willing to do that? Now we're going to have fun. And those who aren't willing to do that, you'll probably leave in about 3 seconds here. Okay, so let's start this. So they start here by saying all the action steps say action in front of it. How many people notice that? Is step 1 an action step or is it an information step?
It's an information step.
Is step 2 an action step or an information step?
An information step.
Step 3 an action step or information step? Or a decision step?
It's a decision step.
So is there action in that decision?
No, not really.
Not really, because if you don't pursue the rest of the steps, then that's your decision. You could say, yes, I do step 3, you could do the step 3 prayer, but if you don't start on step 4, you don't confirm your decision. So what confirms your decision is the action you take in 4. Does that make sense?
Yep.
We all agreed on that, right? So as we go through 4 is the first step in actual recovery. And actual bringing about the solution is step 4, right? So those people that say, I do step 1, 2, and 3 every day, that's a nice way of saying they do nothing, but they feel good about doing it.
We love that stuff.
Yeah, because if steps 1, 2, and 3 can keep you sober, how many people would do step 4? Let's be honest. Nobody would do step 4. It would be a 3-step program. It's a 3-step fellowship, but it's not a 3-step program. A 3-step. So that's like 13 then, right? 1 and 3. No, anyways, moving on. Oh my God. So we just confirmed step 7. And it says on page 76, we have then completed. Underline completed. What does completed mean?
It's done. We don't return to it.
Right? Anybody ever been at a big turkey dinner, family event, a big dinner? Or they ask, would you like seconds? And you say, no, I'm done. It's done. It's like I can't eat no more, completed. Does that mean you keep your plate? No, you hand the plate in. Now you go for dessert. Completed means now you go work on it and concentrate on it and work on it every day. Is that what completed means? Okay, see, so underline that. Completed means it's done. It's no longer our concern. That's what we're agreeing to in step 7. Whose concern is it? It's the big guy's concern. So what do we print? Let's start then. When ready?
When ready, we say something like this. This is page 76, the second paragraph. My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad.
Not some, all.
I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows.
And that would be the stuff from the past. We already agreed what that stuff is, right? Fear, resentment, harms, conduct. When you're in those things, are you very useful to you or anybody around you?
No.
When you're plagued with those things, how much fun are you to be around? You can't even stand your own company, never mind anybody else's company. Anybody like that here? Yeah. Okay, just checking. Where's the cat? No, sorry, go ahead.
Leave the cat alone.
Okay, moving. Oh, Katie, don't let Katie babysit the cat. Okay, moving on. Go ahead.
Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen.
So what's the only thing I'm asking for here?
Strength.
Grant me strength. What other step is familiar with that? That's around power, strength, and guidance. Step 4 and 11. Is it not? So here we're confirming this thing. Okay, let's go.
Now we need more action, without which we find that faith without works is dead.
So now they're saying this is an action step, right? 6 and 7 were the action steps or confirmation steps and vision steps? They're kind of like transition. So there were 6 absolute without getting into all that other stuff, but there's transition steps. 1 step or 2 steps get you ready for the next step.
Yeah.
So 6 and 7 gets you ready. Now what does it say? Now we need more action.
Let's look at steps 8 and 9.
Hold on here. Let's look at. So anybody ever go shopping here, or car shopping, or Christmas shopping, and we're just going to go look at stuff today? We're not buying anything. We're just going to go look. We're looking. Under normal circumstances, that means you're going to you're going to prepare and see what it is that's happening. Like Joe just got a new truck. He did a lot of investigation, looked around, talked to a lot of different dealerships before he took action on something that was presented. And same with our friend in California there. Bought something she was looking for. She prepared herself for it first and then took action on it. Does that kind of mean? So let's look at it. We're not doing nothing yet, are we? Are we doing anything? We're looking at. What are we looking at?
We have a list of all persons we have harmed and to whom we are willing to make amends.
So I'll back it up a bit. Let's look at steps 8 and 9. So that means they put them together. We're going to look at 8 and 9. Right? Okay, we have a
list of all persons we have harmed and to whom we are willing to make amends.
Where's this list from? It's going to answer it.
From our inventory.
Right? And also our 5th step. Right? Oh man, this, that. I see it's more clear here. Geez, I didn't think I owed that person an amend. That wasn't. It was like me and Joe. We're sometimes stuff will get revealed as you go along. When we're down at the Cloverdale, and this kid was acting up, and Joe, I can't believe that kid. And he says, "Oh my God, that kid reminds me. Oh my God, I owe some people an amend." All right. So sometimes we get reminded how we are. We get to see ourselves in action through the eyes or somebody else, and then it reminds us of everybody around us, and then we kind of get embarrassed for ourselves for a second and realize there's still more work to be done, right? Okay.
We made it when we took inventory. We subjected ourselves to a drastic self-appraisal. Now we go out to our fellows and repair the damage done in the past. We attempt to sweep away the debris which has accumulated out of our effort to live on self-will and run the show ourselves.
So a lot of people are, now I go out and make amends. Well, have I looked at it yet? No. So they're saying this is the process. This is the purpose of the process, right? So they said we took the inventory, we have the list. Now, what's the purpose of the process, right? Now we're to go out to our fellows and repair the damage we've done in the, what's that word? Past. Go ahead.
We attempt to sweep away the debris which has accumulated out of our effort to live on self-will and run the show ourselves.
So, what was all our problems of the past associated with?
Self-will.
Self-will. Right? Was that the proper use of will back there?
No.
So we see it wasn't alcoholism that caused those problems. It was self-will. I didn't do those things because I was an alcoholic. You did those things because you're an asshole.
Yep.
We don't like that terminology when it comes to us. When we started the list, we didn't think we were on that list of people who caused all these problems to all these other people because we thought those people were the ones that caused problems to us. How many people were in that list? Realize, looking back, says, "Oh my God, what a shit show I was."
Yeah.
So we seen what caused our problems was actually self based on self. So was God present in all those problems that I need to go make amends for now?
Was he present? No.
Yeah.
No.
Right? So if acceptance was the answer to all our problems, and we find that, nothing happens in God's world by mistake, so we should be looking for these people to thank us for the lesson we taught them? Is that what it'll be saying now?
That's what it should say if that was a true statement.
We would be going, well, you're welcome for whatever God used me as an instrument to teach you your lesson.
Yeah, you're
Because
welcome.
acceptance is the answer to all. Because nothing happens in God's world by mistake. What they mean by that is this. Nothing happens by mistake. We know why this shit happened. And it wasn't God. It wasn't a mistake why it happened. Nothing happens, right? Without a reason. This is the reason all this stuff happened. Because of self-will. And it'll continue to happen as long as self-will is present. Remember they talked about that on page 62? There's no way of entirely getting rid of self without what?
His aid.
Oh, crap. Right? So now we see why shit happens. Yeah. So that's what that means in that terminology. For those that like, when you hear people's acceptance is the answer to all, nothing happens in God's world by mistake. That's right. That's why we do inventory, to see it wasn't a mistake. And to see what caused it. And where it stemmed from, and the absence of God being present in these things. Wow, that's a whole different spin on it, isn't it? How many people heard that version of acceptance?
Nope.
No. And you won't hear people talking about it either, right? It means now we need to be accountable. We're not good at that, are we? Two things we don't like to do. One is say sorry, and two, take ownership to anything.
We don't like looking at ourselves, I guess.
Except John. John's good at it.
Well, why take your own inventory when you can take everyone else's?
That's right. And it's not taking people's inventory. It's called a loving appraisal.
Oh, please. That what you tell yourself?
Okay, let's read on. Okay, so let's start then. Let's start right there again. Right? So now we go out.
Now we go out to our fellows and repair the damage done in the past. We attempt to sweep away the debris which has accumulated out of our effort to live on self-will and run the show ourselves. If we haven't the will to do this, we ask until it comes. Remember, it was agreed at the beginning we would go to any lengths for victory over alcohol.
So where did we make that confirmation? Where did we actually take the time to make that contract?
Step 3.
Step 3. After the third step prayer, it says, what does it say right after the prayer? It says, I'm going blank here. It says, we thought well before taking the step, making sure we're ready, that we could at least abandon ourselves utterly. That means it's a contract. The top of page 63 is a contract between me and God. It was a contract between them and their creator or this power. When we sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer being all-powerful. He provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well. Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves. Our plans and little desire. I'm paraphrasing, but I think it says something like that, right? And then it says, we're now at step 3. Now it's not a surrender thing, is it? And it's not it's I'm making a conscious decision here. Do I want to do am I willing to go to any lengths to make this thing happen in my life? Am I a willing participant? Am I signing up? I'm not getting drafted. Am I signing up for the work that needs to be done here? Am I willing to do the biggest battle of my life and face me on a spiritual plane, right? And then when we do it on a spiritual plane, we're able to really face ourselves for the first time. Absent of that spiritual plane, how well do we do facing ourselves?
Not good.
But it gives us the strength and ability to face it. So here they're saying, we know you're feeling better and you're starting to think. Remember something here. Squiggly writing. Remember I got.
You got muted, Tom.
You can tell it's getting good when I get muted, eh? So here it's reconfirming because they know you're feeling better. Anybody feel better after their 5th step?
Yep.
Anybody feel like they're coasting here? Remember, they're on a different footing now. I got close to God. I'm feeling good. Life's good. I'm starting to think again. They're saying, stop. Stop. I know you're thinking. I know you're feeling good. Let's revisit something. Go ahead. Remember.
Sorry. Where do you want me to go from?
Remember.
Remember it was agreed at the beginning we would go to any lengths for victory over alcohol.
Yeah, that means we're not cured. We're not recovered yet, are we? We're still in the process of this thing. Is that not what it says?
Yeah.
The feeling of the drink maybe but it's still lying dormant. It hasn't really. It's starting to be chipped away here. I don't know how else to explain it, right? But it's still present. If we were to stop here, would we have the elements of overcoming alcohol or have to recover it?
No.
Right? That's what they're saying here. We know you're feeling better. We know things are looking better, but hang on here. Right? It was agreed that we're willing to go to any lengths to overcome alcohol. And if you're not willing to do this thing, then you're missing the essence of step 7, and you're missing it of step 3 and of step 2. And which means is you don't really comprehend step 1.
Yeah.
Because step 1 should still have you motivated to do these things. Because what do we need to obtain in order to recover?
Spiritual experience, psychic change.
And if that means I'm still prone to dying an alcoholic death here. So really, some of us see the light, most of us feel the flames, right? Most of us are still being driven by the fire, but we still see a bit of light. Anybody would say that's true here?
Yep.
Okay.
Probably there are still some misgivings. As we look over the list of business acquaintances and friends we have hurt, we may feel different about going to some of them on a spiritual basis.
Okay, so now what are we doing here? As we
look over the list.
So that's the other, we're still looking. We're looking over the list.
Yeah.
Right? We're looking it over, and we're not doing nothing yet. We're looking at it.
Yep.
And we're kind of now, there's some misgivings here, there's still some self here, there's still some step 6 here, there's still step 7 stuff here, and how do I deal with all these things inside of myself that seems to be, I'm still not on gravel road, I'm still on gravel road here with a lot of potholes, but I see pavement down in the future, but I'm still hitting a lot of this stuff here. What it says is, work on these things. Do I now work on these things till they come to pass? It says, I pray about these things.
Yeah.
What am I praying for? The key ingredient to all this whole thing, the basis is, yes, humility, but also what's the key is
willingness.
Pretty interesting how they put that together, right?
Yeah.
We pray until, what are we praying for? With the understanding, I only have 2 alternatives. My fate's already sealed unless I get this reprieve. My fate's sealed. I'm going to die an alcoholic death. It didn't say when. It didn't say if. I've already agreed to that in step 1. It's just a matter of time. How many people know people here who made a good beginning?
Yep.
Remember that guy in there? His family was reassembled. Everything was, he's feeling good. Feeling good. Right? Right? But he failed to enlarge in his, this is the path. And what happened was the step 1 promise returned. How many people here have experienced the step 1 promise returning?
Yep.
That means relapse. How many people's relapsed here? And how many people did alcoholism ask your permission for it to happen first? Did it go, excuse me, I know things have been going kind of all right here, but can I talk you into a drink? Maybe a little Chardonnay or some fucking thing like that. It doesn't do that, does it?
No.
It's like, what the hell am I doing? Anybody have that? Driven by this click in your brain that couldn't stop you no how. Anybody?
Yep.
Yeah. It's like that Mighty Python movie. Remember The Meaning of Life? Surely, sir, 1 mint won't hurt you. Remember that? Surely.
What year was that?
Moving on. Joanne caught it. Those real good stoners caught that movie. Anyways, moving on. Sorry, Joe. Okay. Okay. Remember that we can't remember. Remember? No. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Go ahead.
Keep going.
Let's look, as we look at, so we're looking over the list. And this is where my sponsor got me to put it in 3 categories. The now, the maybes, and the nevers. Right? So I knew which ones I would struggle with. And also the ones that were financial and the ones that were emotional. And the financial ones, he got me to put down the figures all beside them. Who I owed, what I owed. The emotional ones, I had a rough idea from my 5th step and my 4th step, the damage that I caused on people, places, and things, including society overall. The overall damage that I caused. So when I put it in the list of nows I'm willing to do these now, And these maybes were the ones I seen I struggled with, and the nevers. So I had this list. It didn't mean I did anything with it, but I knew this thing here. There was some misgiving still of these. And what am I doing is I'm praying. So before I engage in any one of these things, we're going to get to the recipe here. That a lot of people don't get taught this, but the book teaches us this. Go ahead.
As we look over the list of business acquaintances and friends we have hurt, we may feel different about going to some of them on a spiritual basis. Let us be reassured. To some people, we need not, and probably should not, emphasize the spiritual feature on our first approach. We might prejudice them. At the moment, we are trying to put our lives in order, but this is not an end in itself. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us.
A lot of people say that and they take the word fit out. A lot of people say our job is to be of maximum service to God and the people around us. Anybody here put that way? How many people heard the word fit? Fit means it takes effort. It takes planning. It takes interruption. It takes, you know what I mean? Instead of come home, not even sure, change my shirt, wash my face, sit down, do the Zoom.
It takes humility. It takes humility. It takes humility to fit yourself to be of maximum service to God and those around you.
It does. The phone rings, something happens. It's kind of like, the movie's on, pause, haven't eaten yet. Like, I got off the Zoom yesterday and I sat down. Buddy phones me and I'm hungry. I haven't eaten since lunch. I'm starting to shake. I said, listen, I just finished this. I need to have something to eat. Is it really pressing? And they talked for another 15 minutes. And I said, hey, listen, I haven't eaten yet. Is this really pressing? And then they talked for another 5 minutes. And I said, hey, I haven't eaten yet. I have my food in front of me. I'm going to have to go microwave it. Is it really pressing? Oh, no, by all means, have something to eat. That's what, I'll phone you later. That's what they mean, fit ourselves. Everything's screaming, I'm not taking this call. I'm not going to my home group early. I'm not going to go to that Zoom meeting. I'm not going to go talk to that new person about a solution. I'm not going to fit myself to go be, I'm not going to go do that service work. I'm not going to. Because it takes effort, time, and commitment. And yes, humility. So fitting yourself and being is two different things. Yes? No?
Yes.
Okay. So that's, again, reiterates what this whole thing is about. What's this whole thing about? Read, that's worth reading. This is what the whole thing is about now. What is it?
Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. It is seldom wise to approach an individual who still smarts from our injustice to him and announce that we have gone religious. In the prize ring, this would be called leading with the chin. Why lay ourselves open to being branded fanatics or religious bores?
So you notice what they started doing? They're giving us counsel on what they have experienced and what we may experience. They're going to walk us through the whole thing. Every different possible scenario, every different thing that they've experienced, and they're going to categorize it in different scenarios as they go through. It's all going to be categorized in their experience. Then I need to read through, then I may get some insight or different ways of approaching it, but the basis of it is my spiritual foundation, how I approach this thing by seeking God's counsel, and I'll get into that in a second. Go ahead.
We may kill a future opportunity to carry a beneficial message, but our man is sure to be impressed with a sincere desire to set right the wrong.
Okay, so, isn't that interesting? Our purpose of our 9 now is, yes, to make right, but also to carry a message. So step 9 becomes about them healing, them finding peace, them finding serenity, and seeing a demonstration of spiritual principles in your life that they might in turn find peace and happiness and contentment. What you're doing with them is giving the opportunity to heal. So anybody here been sober a little bit? When you approach people, they get angry with you? Especially loved ones and family? Why that is they feel safe enough to release some of that pent-up energy and pain that they have. And if you approach them on a non-spiritual basis, you'll take that personal and you will react and respond to them and punish them again. You'll need an amend for an amend. But if you do it on a spiritual basis that we're going to get into in a minute, you'll see that you'll see where I'm going with this in a minute. Okay, go ahead.
He is going to be more interested in a demonstration of goodwill than in our talk of spiritual discoveries. We don't use this as an excuse for shying away from the subject of God when it will serve any good purpose. We are willing to announce our convictions with tact and common sense. The question of how to approach the man we hated will arise. It may be he has done us more harm than we have done him, and though we may have acquired a better attitude toward him, we are still not too keen about admitting our faults. Nevertheless, with a person we dislike, we take the bit in our teeth. It is harder to go to an enemy than to a friend, but we find it more beneficial to us. We go to him in a helpful and forgiving spirit, confessing our former ill feeling and expressing our regret. Under no condition do we criticize such a person or argue. Simply we tell him that we will never get over our drinking until we have done our utmost to straighten out the past.
It's funny, eh? In the fifth step, you explain to somebody what you're about to do and why you have to do it. Here, you're kind of doing the same thing, right?
Yes.
It's kind of about like, I'm dying of alcoholism. I was dying. And if they know you, they'll realize that there's something wrong with you long before you knew there was something wrong with you. And you're there to admit their observations on you and the wrongs that you've done. But you get to explain is kind of like, you know what I mean? That kind of like, if they're worse off than you, they'll see a change in you like Bill's seen in Ebby. Even though Ebby wasn't there to make him, he's seen there was something different about them. And that would be the opportunity that will disturb them later, realizing there may be a different life for them available to them. That would be the message you carry, is the demonstration that you've changed. Not said you've changed. Or how many people's gone in the past before doing it this way, when they went to make amends, first they listed why they were the way they were because of what they did. So I remember going to make amends to my mom before I did this stuff, but first I listed the nasty stuff she did before I got to making amends for my response to her stuff. That's not amends. Or making amends as using it as an opportunity to really let other people have it. Anybody ever do that here? Mom, dad, loved ones? I like to make amends, but first I want to talk about all the nasty shit you've done. Right? And then say, and will you forgive me? I don't even know why you're still in my house. Never mind, forgive you. Right? And the fight started, right? Okay. Go ahead.
We are there to sweep off our side of the street, realizing that nothing worthwhile can be accomplished until we do so, never trying to tell him what he should do. His faults are not discussed. We stick to our own.
Underline that, because sometimes with people, you love family and loved ones, they know where your buttons are because they put them there. Right? You're like an 26-story elevator. All your buttons are just lit up and ready to go, right? So you get in the elevator on a spiritual plane, none of the buttons are lit up. Then you start talking to them, all of a sudden this second floor, basement floor, all the buttons start getting lit up. Anybody? Huh? And the door's open and you go on, and then by the time you get to the 15th floor, you're out of your mind from the door. So now you're back living in the problem. But if you're living in the solution, none of those buttons are going to get pushed. You'll have energy, but they won't be demonstrated in a place where you draw them into a fight. And I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Okay, go ahead.
If our manner is calm, frank, and open, we will be gratified with the result.
How do I do that? Stay calm, frank, and open. They haven't given me the instructions on how to do that, but they say this is the thing that I need to be conscious, aware of, an observer of. These are the things I need to going in there, that I'm aware of these things that need to be maintained. This is the idea. This is what I need to keep focus on. And when there's a shift that is starting to go back how I used, or my energy starts to shift, I need to be able to bring it back to this neutral ground. Yes or no?
Yes.
I need to get back to being an observer, but they haven't given me the instructions on how to do that yet. They've given me the instructions on how to master resentment, outgrow fear, and my conduct, but they haven't taught me how to change it before it becomes a problem. Interesting. We'll show you. Okay, go ahead.
In 9 cases out of 10, the unexpected happens. Sometimes the man we are calling upon admits his own fault, so feuds of years standing melt away in an hour. Rarely do we fail to make satisfactory progress. Our former enemies sometimes praise that we are doing and wish us well, what we are doing and wish us well. Occasionally, they will offer assistance. It should not matter. However, if someone does throw us out of his office, it should not matter, however, if someone does throw us out of his office. We have made our demonstration, done our part. It's water over the dam.
So this is interesting. If somebody throws you out of the office, that means you need to walk out of there without walking into a bar. That means that you have such a change in you that you're able to stay focused on the purpose, on the energy that you went in with, and you leave with the same thing. You're now in counsel with something else other than yourself. You have a different response. You're not taking on the other person. That means you have to, it's like walking through a minefield. You hear the click, 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 click inside of you, but they're not turning into hand grenades or bombs inside of you. You're able to defuse them before you release your foot from them, right? Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. That's where that idea of the path comes from, is back somebody would clear the field of minefield and they'd mark where you put your footing. And if you followed that, you'd be okay. Now, if you stepped on one, it's the releasing of that energy or the releasing of that causes the explosion. So inside of you, when you start doing these things, you'll feel the click. You'll feel the energy shift inside of you. But in order to do that, you need to master something. So here, follow with me, okay? And this will be on recording later. So what are we doing? Are we going out making amends right now, or are we still reading through the list and looking at some of the challenges?
Still reading.
Reading and looking at some. So as we go through, it says most alcoholics owe money. Then it goes over to 78. Most alcoholics owe. Perhaps we've committed a criminal offense. And then they talk about, here, page 70, they go right through this stuff, right? Page 80, they talk about examples of that. And they kind of go through, they talk about domestic problems here, right? And they talk, like page 80, the chances are we have domestic. So they're covering everything here. 81, whatever the situation. 82, perhaps there's some cases of, like financial criminal activity, right? Going through. And then they talk about here, if we have no such complications. So this is interesting. So we got a bit of time here, and we're going to read through this. And we're going to start kind of here on the alcoholic. So So you should go through that list, and you should read that, and you should be going through it with your sponsor on each specific circumstance that's on your list, on the difficulties or where it is. The yes, the maybes, the nevers, right? Some misgivings, that's the same kind of idea, right? And what you should be incorporating is prayer, or willingness is the prayer to create a shift of dependence upon something greater than me than depending on me. The fear comes from depending on me. That's where the fear comes from. Self-reliance, right? So you're trying to be a demonstration of you instead of something greater than you.
Yep.
So the alcoholic. So we're still reading through this, right? Now they're giving us a summary. Go ahead.
The alcoholic is like a tornado roaring his way through the lives of others. We're on page 82, bottom paragraph. Hearts are broken, sweet relationships are dead, affections have been uprooted. Selfish and inconsiderate habits have kept the home in turmoil. We feel a man is unthinking when he says that sobriety is enough. He is like the farmer who came up out of his cyclone cellar to find his home ruined. To his wife, he remarked, "Don't see anything the matter here, Ma."
And aren't we like that? Aren't we like that? When we get sober, we get a couple months and the whole world should forget about everything we've done. What do you mean you brought that up? Why are you bringing that up again? I got 3 months sobriety. It's on my resume. Like, I don't know why you guys are still treating me like this. Because it's been 15 years of this shit. And you got 3 months, and all of a sudden the dog has 3 months of sobriety. For God's sake, you know what I mean? like we think, because we don't see the world the way the rest of the world sees it, do we? But anybody ever deal with a drunk here? You ever notice how indignant and intolerant we are when it comes to dealing with people like us?
Oh, yeah.
We talk about love and tolerance. When was the last time you're in a meeting, a cell phone goes off, somebody's bringing out the rope to hang them? we're the most intolerant people when it comes to other people. But ourselves, we want all the love and tolerance and consideration in the world. Anybody?
Yep.
I got 3 months again. That means don't bring up my past. Just give me accolades and pat my back. I've paid my rent again this month. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, there is a long period of reconstruction ahead.
Long.
Well, underline that. So you're not delusioned with the idea that I've done the steps now that, wow, yellow brick road, me and Dorothy. Hey, you still need to go through the forest. Hey, put Toto in the basket and keep walking. Just keep walking. Okay. You're about to face you. Okay. That's what the yellow brick road is. You. Okay, go ahead. I don't know where I have these moments, right? We should all do that dance together. Okay. Go ahead.
We must take the lead. A remorseful mumbling that we are sorry won't fill the bill at all. We ought to sit down with the family and frankly analyze the past as we now see it, being very careful not to criticize them.
Very careful. Very careful. Underline that.
So in other words, you're not supposed to assess your mom's parenting skills before you make an amends.
Or your husbands, or your kids, or the people around you, as we do, is say, well, if you weren't like this, I wouldn't have been like this. And they would have said, well, if you didn't spend the rent or the mortgage...
Well, this would go back to what we learned in the 4, right? About our faults, our wrongs, our mistakes, were we to blame, right?
100%.
Yeah, setting aside the wrongdoings of others entirely. We resolutely look for our own mistakes, yeah.
Yep.
Their defects may be glaring, but the chances are that our own actions are partly responsible.
And defects may be glaring. It means they're hanging on to pain from the past that they're carrying in the moment. Still that they're harboring. It's not today's stuff they're fighting with. It's all yesterday's stuff. It's created a flaw in their character, a defect. They're not responding to today's stuff. They're a little becoming narcissistic and a little warped. They're becoming a little gaslighted, like they're crazy. Like they're crazy. Been living with us for how long? We got 3 months now. We're like, all of a sudden now we want to be the spiritual advisors in the family. No wonder look at the problems you people have. No wonder I drank. Right? Like that kind of, well, they didn't have those problems before you showed up. Like my mom used to say, call the police. I said, what are you calling police for? She said, we didn't need the police before you showed up. Just letting you know. Like it took me a couple years of sobriety to click into that one. Okay?
So we clean house with the family, asking each morning in meditation that our Creator show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love.
Okay, underline that.
So we clean house with the family, asking each morning in meditation that our Creator show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love.
Here's the homework, right? A lot of people teach this, that we need to do 8 and 9 before we do 10 and 11. Anybody ever hear that?
Yes.
Yep.
It's so, I don't understand it, right? Because the book is designed like this. I'm gonna explain how I see the book and how I've read the book and how we've been teaching this. And don't just this week read it to see if it's correct or incorrect. Okay? So follow along with me. So they're talking about step 11 here. Then it talks about the spiritual life is not a theory. What we have to live it. And then we go on here. There's something to go on, and then they talk about the promises, right? What's the matter?
Nothing. I've given you patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love through the computer screen. Carry on.
About time. So now it brings us up to the promises. We're going to go over this again next week. And what does let's read what the promises says. If
we are painstaking, about this phase of our development.
Painstaking means with purpose. About what phase of our development? Our amends. Yes? No?
Yes.
Yep.
If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through.
Halfway through the process of the amends. Did it say how long that would take? Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. It is dependent on how willing you are to pursue the spiritual remedy and making peace with your past. If you're unwilling to do that, how close are you to a drink?
Close.
If you're willing to do this, how far do you become from a drink?
Pretty good.
So that's what they're saying here. If I'm not willing to do this, the problem still remains. If I'm willing to do this, the problem gets removed, okay? So, through this phase of our development, go ahead.
We will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness.
Amazed. Not somewhat thrilled, amazed. You'll be amazed. If you've experienced stuff where you've been amazed with, every time you talk to it, you're still amazed about it. People talk about this stuff and they don't even seem somewhat thrilled. And I know the promises are coming true. Maybe you want to inform your face, right? It's like amazed is like I could talk about events. Even today, 31 years, I talk about this and I'm still amazed with it. Like I get hyped. I get wow. It's just a phenomenal thing. When they use the word amazed, they're not underselling it. Go ahead.
Can I ask you something, Tony?
You started. Go ahead.
Okay. It says we will be amazed. It doesn't say we are amazed.
Well, that's because you got to go look at what it talked about before that.
They're making a promise, not a statement.
Yeah, when we're halfway through.
That's my point.
Yeah, we will be amazed. That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good point. Okay, go ahead.
We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it.
Pretty cool, eh? We'll be at peace with it. Most people, when they finish their fifth, they're not totally still at peace with their past.
No.
That's why the problems are in their 9, in their 8, right? Anybody? They're still hanging on to stuff, which is step 6.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace.
When? Halfway as I go through this process. That means it's not happening now. It means I'm reading through this. I'm saying this is kind of like what they experienced. I haven't done it yet to experience what they're talking about, have I?
No.
Just because I read it doesn't mean it's happening. Exactly. It means I need to do this in order for it to happen at the level of experience that they're talking about. It's a process. They're preparing me for this. They say, hey, it's like, Tony, you're going on this trip. Well, when you get there, you could expect this, this, and this. Wow, it sounds fantastic. Cuba, Vietnam, wherever I've been, Paris. Here, they talk, those that went before, the brochures, the shows we watched, people that went before us talked about all these beautiful things that we could expect if we were willing to embark on the same course that they took. Does that kind of make sense? That's what they're doing here. They say when you get here, when you stand in front of the Mona Lisa, you kind of like, it's just a little painting, but it's the history and the art music is just mind-boggling. You'll be amazed when you're sitting on the beaches of Normandy, or when you're walking through those fields of those that were left behind to have the freedom. Amazed means to be moved. Amazed. When you're amazed, you're moved from the inside out. It's just like when I stood on those beaches, Juno Beach, if you know the history there, and that thing, I got goosebumps even talking about. There was nothing there, just the story of it, and scene, and the plaques, and the memorials, and the fields. It moved me.
That's your experience, though. Listening to you talk about it does not give us the experience.
100%. I had to go there.
Right.
Like I've watched it on TV. I've seen people who've talked about it, and that's what I'm talking about, is the going there. And it's something that you experience. That's what they're talking. When you get there...
You can make that experience sound incredibly attractive. And that's what they're doing here in these promises, is making this experience sound incredibly attractive. But you are not having the experience by just sitting here reading this book. You need to follow these instructions in order to experience this the way that you planned your trip. getting there, experiencing it live and in Technicolor has moved you. But we don't have that experience by listening to it.
And you don't have that experience by going to meetings. Like you hear people, the third meeting, the promises are coming true. How?
Well, that's what a meeting is. A meeting is us sharing our experiences. You can't have somebody else's experience just by hearing it or listening to it or reading about it.
Or talking about it at the next meeting. How many people were hoping that's the way it worked? Here's something good at one meeting. It's your experience by the time you get to the next meeting.
Because we feel like we're having the experience by listening to it and then repeating it as if it's our own at the next meeting. We love that stuff. And then we wonder what's wrong with us.
Yeah, okay. So read on.
No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see that how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us.
Underline intuitiveness. That's what they're saying. One of the promise, intuitiveness. Right? Go ahead.
We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves.
Who?
God.
So there's an experience going through the 9 that reinforces our relationship with a power greater than ourselves. Creative intelligence, spirit, whatever you want to call it. That deep down guidance from within. It re-strengthens as it shows up in all different areas of our life as we pursue this stuff. So this is about formulating that relationship with a power greater than ourselves. As we clean up the past, we see how God starts to demonstrate his fingerprints in our lives. So are these things happening or they're going to happen?
About to.
Right? So this is a thought, right? Okay, so read on.
Are these extravagant promises? We think not.
Because they're promises, right? Question mark. We're reading it. Are they we think, well, they sound pretty extravagant, right? Isn't it anybody reading this for the first time? Sounds a little out there, right? But we already know that we're in something that's pretty remarkable because we started this course of action based on other people's experience, right? So they're saying we've also experienced this, and they're going to answer that. Are these extravagant promises?
We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them.
And what's the work? Spiritual, is it not? And cleaning up the past. And facing these things in ourselves that have been blocking us or cutting us off. So we become more spiritual reliant than self-reliant. We become more of a spiritual being than a Neanderthal. Right? We're moving in a new path. So, this is your homework. This thought. What thought? These promises. Yes, no?
Yes.
This thought brings us to step 10. It's a thought. Is there an action here?
No.
Which suggests we continue. What does continue mean? Underline that and look it up this week. Continue. Continue to do what? Continue to take personal inventory. Where did we learn how to do that?
Step 4.
4, 5, 6 is that we learn the basis of that there, right? The mechanics of a spiritual development, right?
Yeah.
And continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. Where do we learn that?
11.
No.
We actually learned it in 4 and 5. Mastering resentment, outgrowing fear, and correcting harms. Yes, no?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
And 8 and 9. Yes, making amends. 8 and 9. That's where we learn this process. So this week, read through the rest of the step. Rest of the page 84, 85. And the last paragraph on 85 is the summary of what this whole thing is about. And then next week, answer the question, what is step 10 preparing us for? Is step 10 an action step that we do on a daily basis, or is it a transition step preparing us for something? Read what it says. Read not what you've taught, not what you've been heard. You hear people say, we do 10, 11, and 12 every day. Anybody ever hear that? Doesn't say that nowhere. That's treatment. That's self-based recovery stuff. It's not about 10, 11, and 12. It's not about working the steps. Have anybody seen where it says it's about working the steps yet?
No.
The steps are a vehicle for something greater that we focus on. And what's that? Our real purpose is what, Joanne?
To fit ourselves to be of service, of maximum service to God and those about us.
And if it was to work on the steps, wouldn't it said our real purpose now is to work on the steps every day? Wouldn't it said that?
Yeah.
Can anybody, and this week, show us where it says that?
Okay.
You have a week to find where it says to work on the steps every day, especially 10, 11, and 12.
I'll find it.
Yeah, find it for me. Yep. So read that this week and ask the question, is step 10 a transition step or is it a new working step? And what is it preparing me for? This thought brings us to step 10. What is step 10 preparing me for and the purpose of it? That's it. That was fun.
No, that's not it.
It's
That's
not it?
at all. That's not it.
Nobody move.
Listen, Adam's just put a very important link in the chat. It's for the PayPal account, and that's how you can practice the seventh tradition of Alcoholics Anonymous. The seventh tradition states that Alcoholics Anonymous is self-supporting through its own contributions. The contributions help to cover this group's expenses, but the seventh tradition is more than simply paying for rent and other groups' expenses like the Zoom account. It is both a privilege and a responsibility of of individual groups and members to ensure that our organization at every level remain forever self-supporting and free of outside influences that might divert us from our primary purpose. The monetary amount of each contribution is secondary to the spiritual connection that joins us in unity with AA groups around the world. If you would like to participate in practicing our seventh tradition, then you can click on that link that Adam put in the chat and contribute whatever you can. I know that the contributions from this group are helping the General Service Office in New York. The General Service Office allows 12-step work to continue around the world, even in the middle of this pandemic, and they're a little shy of their prudent reserve. So if you're in a position to contribute, that's a great way to do it. Thank you.
Awesome. And Joe's putting up last week's talk on the Facebook page, Facebook group page that we have, and online. So 6 and 7 will be online. Now you can kind of go through that. And this talk will be online next week.
6 and 7 is on the YouTube channel. Again, if you want to get caught up with all the talks, all the Big Book Study workshops, go to Tony.R. Vancouver YouTube and in there have fun, subscribe, whatever you want to do. You can go to the About section, download the Big Book Study workshop sheets, and have fun.
And you can go on our Facebook page. What's the name of that?
Joanne?
The Big Book Study Workshop Discussion Group.
And it's a private group. It's anonymous. Nobody will know you're there. You need to be added as a member. But you can find the page and add yourself, and then we'll process it you. And it's a group discussion page like this. That it?
That's it. Do we want to pray?
We want a prayer. What's the first requirement in making this thing happen? Joe, Joanne?
God.
I offer myself to thee.
To build with me and do with me as thou wilt.
Relieve me of the bondage of self,
that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always.
May the force be with you.
Awesome.
Live long and prosperous.
Awesome. Beautiful. Awesome.
Thank you so much, Tony. Another good night.